I'm Carrie Peters, a recognized thought leader in the Microsoft Dynamics community and a Microsoft MVP for business applications. Welcome to the Get Your New View podcast. Keep listening to learn how we work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers that they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. In this next season of the Get Your New View podcast, I'd like you to meet even more members of our New View team who have brought examples of their favorite projects they've worked on with our customers to create efficiencies, utilize automation, and simply use even more of the features of their Business Central software. Everybody, I'd like for you to welcome Tim Congleton, who is our Chief Operating Officer, and Shawn, who is one of our senior consultants, to our podcast today. I've asked them to tell some stories today about different projects that they have done with our customers related to warehousing. They are our warehousing and distribution specialists, among all sorts of other things that they do, but warehousing is the thing that truly lights these two people up when they see our customers improve using Business Central with these different things. So, Kim, I'm going to ask you to tell your story first. You shared something with me that I'd love for you to share with the folks who are listening today.
Thanks, Carrie. We have one customer that when they went live with BC, as often happens, people go live with BC and a lot of times they don't get to implement a lot of functionality in the warehouse. So they might start out with just BIM mandatory turned on, and at least they're tracking kind of where some things are in the warehouse. But a lot of times when we come in, what we'll notice is that just having been mandatory on, they still have a lot of inefficiencies in their processes. So, for example, the customer we're talking about here, they were really having a hard time finding their inventory because what would happen is, somebody would receive it and they'd walk and they'd go put it on a shelf. And they really wouldn't record maybe the right bin because the purchase order was just defaulting a bin that it was supposed to go in. But when they got to that bin, it was full. So they're like, I'm just going to throw it on this one. And there's nothing really forcing them to say, tell what bin they actually put it in. So they were spending hours doing physical count. And their inventory, even though it's a small warehouse, their inventory had a high dollar value. So, they're spending 8 hours, 16 hours trying to find one part that's worth like $10,000. It gets really frustrating after a while. They're really kind of the model client about doing some research on their own and working with and wanting to learn the right way to do things. So what we did is we worked with them and were able to train their staff and kind of walk them through the process of how we could turn advanced warehousing on so we could improve the inventory accuracy and also kind of improve the purchasing aspects as well.
Very good. So they went through that process and they learned how to expand on what they already had. What were some of the other things that they could do now that they weren't able to do before since they made those kind of improvements?
Right. So they actually wanted to start cycle counting instead of having to do like a full physical. They still are kind of getting used to that process, but now that it's in place with full warehousing turned on, there's a lot of the transactions that are happening real time. So when they go to actually go do their cycle counting or do their physical counting, they know where things are now and they're not searching for hours to actually find that. So, they can see accurately what they have, where it's at. They can do replenishments now. It's a lot easier for them to tell if they have inventory in stock. So it's really made their processes a lot more efficient.
Sounds like this particular customer has really embraced what we talk about with a lot of our customers, the concept of continual improvement and really building upon that. So what kind of things are they doing now with that new attitude in mind? What's that view of the future for them?
Yeah, a lot of times we like to recommend a mobile component when you turn this level of warehousing on. Since they are smaller and they have, one or two people doing it, they were okay with going and using like a tablet to kind of do the transactions as they happen. But the next level is actually going to a mobile component and then using that to actually scan barcodes instead of having to enter stuff on a on a tablet. So it'll make them a little bit more efficient. It'll continue to work on those efficiencies and really kind of take them to the next level.
Yeah, fantastic. I love seeing that progression and love seeing how people start to innovate once they have the basics in place and they can see what's possible in the future, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then also the next thing that they're looking at too is, I know this is not about Power BI or anything, but once they have the mobile component, what we're also talking about is then building out some KPIs for them in Power BI as well.
That's great. That's great. Seems like everything leads to Power BI lately, right? There's so much possibility, and it fits in with every single thing that we do in these companies. So good. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Thanks, Kim. Shawn, what kind of story did you bring for us related to customers that you've worked with?
So I had a customer that had been on Navision for a very long time, and they had 25 locations. So what they wanted to do is it was important for them to turn on bin level management so they could get real-time inventory and be able to be more efficient. So they had a concept of this primary and secondary bin. So what's happening is that a lot of times they didn't know where the inventory was, or unless there was somebody who had been in the warehouse for a long time and they brought on new warehouse employees, they had to go out and try to memorize the warehouse, the items, where everything was at in the warehouse. So it was really inefficient. So we developed a team with the client of 12 members, and there were 3 teams. And what we did is we did a pilot and documented the process and then trained the team members. And that allowed the team members at the client to go out and roll out the process so we could do one a weekend and get all 25 locations turned on. So instead of taking a year to do it, we could do it in 12 weeks.
That's awesome. So what were some of the things that came out of that once you were past the implementation of that and got everybody going?
One of the things that was really nice for them is they received a couple of containers a week. And so what was happening before is a lot of times it would set on the dock or in the trailer to be processed, and it would take a couple of days. So we were able to implement cross-docking, and so the product would come in and it would be able to go right back out on the trucks. And so that saved a lot of time. The other thing is item adjustments. They were doing a lot of item adjustments because they couldn't find the inventory. So they would do a negative adjustment and then cycle count and say, okay, yeah, I found the inventory, and put it back in. That was causing a lot of problems with purchasing because then purchasing was out buying inventory that they didn't need. So it was that whole ripple effect in the whole organization. So once we turned that on, it helped customer service. There wasn't as many late shipments. It helped purchasing, and it helped the warehouse immensely.
I love that. I love hearing that. And my little finance brain picks up on all these things with inventory accuracy and not having so much inventory in place. So therefore more cash flow, right? When you think about the warehouse people that you've worked with, what's the thing that gets them excited about these kind of improvements, Shawn? What makes them really smile? And they're like, oh gosh, now we can do this.
I think it's, finding the inventory and ultimately, as Kim mentioned, moving to a mobile device and scanning and really going paperless. A lot of times we'll see that, turning on some advanced warehouse is the first step, and then moving to a mobile device is second step. And so I think the warehouse really gets excited about those mobile devices and being able to, get rid of some of the paper.
Yeah. Absolutely. All that automation leads to a lot more accuracy and makes their jobs easier. Good. Well, when you think about our customers and the people that we would like to work with in the future, I think that one of the questions that people often have is, what's it going to take for us to get organized to do this? Or what's it going to take to get started with this? So Kim, what advice could you give to people as they're thinking about embarking on a new project, or as they're kind of putting together their list of things to do next year? What effort is that going to take for them to get started working with somebody like us on these kind of projects?
I think the biggest thing for me that I see a lot of people is they kind of underestimate the amount of time it would take to do this. So, I've had some people tell me like, oh, and this was when I was an end user, had somebody tell me like, oh, just go flip that switch and turn on advanced warehousing. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. So I think the biggest thing is to recognize if you are going to go to that level, it is a mini project. Like you really do have to say it's going to be a commitment. There's a lot of upfront work that has to happen that people maybe don't think about. And, first thing is, do you have everything barcoded in your warehouse? Especially if you want, like Shawn said, to use a mobile component, you need to have barcodes on your parts and on your locations. And there's a lot of people that just don't even have that yet. So, really make sure you think of it as a project and you really set enough time aside to actually commit to doing that. Yeah. It's not something you do in a week or overnight, for sure.
Yep. Yeah. Shawn, what's your advice for people as they're getting started on these kind of projects? What can they do to prepare and to really make this as smooth as it possibly can be?
Same with the layout. I mean, if they have the bins already defined, that step is a little bit easier. But if they don't, then, we need to go and label the bins and the product. The other thing I would say, too, is treating it like a project, and there's a lot of training that has to happen. So just even customer service, knowing that there's picks out there and where the inventory is, that we need to have the whole organization involved. And so a lot of times it's not just a warehouse project, although that's where a lot of the heavy lifting is. It affects the whole.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I tell people as they're thinking about these kind of projects is to work with consultants who have experience doing this. And you guys have lots of experience. You've been hands-on with many of these projects and have used these things within your own organizations at some point as well. So the thing that I always tell people when I try to explain is that it's just faster. We're not having to have somebody go back and figure out how to do something for you. The folks that we have already know how to do this, and they have resources to draw upon within the organization. If there's something unusual, somebody who works with NewView has seen that and knows what that right answer is to get it done for you. So I love that real world experience that you guys bring to the plate for these kind of projects. And I love your passion. I love seeing your smiles as you're talking about how you've made a difference for these different customers and what's been fantastic about putting those solutions in place. Kim, do you have any other thoughts to share with folks who might be considering warehousing projects in the future?
No, I think my last kind of parting thought is just to play off what Shawn said a little bit more. It really is an organization-wide project. Make sure I've seen it go badly when the other groups aren't involved in it. So, I showed up at one go live and there was a whole group of people who didn't even know we were doing turning on functionality in the warehouse. So that's always fun a week before go live to actually have to have that conversation with those users. So don't underestimate how much this is going to affect the whole organization.
Yep. Shawn, what are your thoughts as we wrap this up with people who are considering doing these kind of projects?
I would look at your process and then also test. So maybe putting together the things that we need to make sure once we turn on this functionality that they can still do and if that are important. And so having that list, and that's something that you can do prior to, turning on functionality, putting that together and having that document.
Yep. Fantastic. The thing I'll share with folks is as you're thinking about these kind of projects, think about what that true return on investment is going to be. And don't be afraid to talk to us as you're thinking about a project like that. How much time can we estimate is going to be saved? And what's the value of that time? There are real dollar savings behind these kind of projects. And what that brings to your organization is not only the savings of time and money, but the savings of opportunity with what else you can do once that particular improvement is placed. So Kim, Shawn, thank you very much for joining us today. I loved hearing your stories and having a chance to share those with our customers and folks who'd like to work with us in the future. I'm Carrie Peters. Thank you for tuning in to the Get Your New View podcast. For more episodes like this on YouTube, click the subscribe button and ring the bell to ensure that you get notified whenever new content comes out. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please share an honest review on Apple Podcasts. If you are ready to rethink today for tomorrow, look for the link below and contact us to speak with our expert team. You won't find the level of no-nonsense real-world experience we offer anywhere else, and we're here to put that experience to work for you. Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you suspect there just has to be a better way and you don't know what it is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at NewView Strategies work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started.